the clanging of steel doors, the echo of heavy boots on concrete. Somewhere inside the Metropolitan Detention Center, Sean Diddy Combs, a man who once commanded music charts and boardrooms, now wakes to a reality he never imagined. Just months ago, he was a multi-millionaire mogul. Today, he's an inmate fighting for more than his freedom. He's fighting to stay alive. In the world outside, Diddy's name meant power, influence, untouchable status. Inside prison walls, it's a double-edged sword. To some, he's a living legend. To others, he's a target. And that target just got bigger. A new letter to the judge has thrown his case back into the spotlight, not because of what happened in court, but because of what happened behind bars. His lawyers are demanding his release before sentencing, pointing to the brutal attack that left him shaken, exposed, and begging for protection. This wasn't just another prison scuffle, it was a calculated act meant to send a message. Fame can't shield you here. The clock is ticking toward October 3rd, the day he could be sentenced to years in federal prison. But now, the question is no longer just how long he might serve. It's whether he can even survive that long. So what happened inside those walls? What drove one of the most powerful figures in hip-hop to openly plead for safety? And will this latest bid for freedom be his lifeline or his last desperate move before the system closes in? Diddy's legal team isn't just asking for mercy, they're building a case designed to make the court question why he's still behind bars at all. In their latest filing to Judge Arun Subramanian, they argue that the charges he was actually convicted of are far from the kind that justify locking a man away in one of the country's most dangerous federal facilities. The headlines months ago were explosive: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, violence. But the jury cleared him of the most damning counts. What remained? 2 violations under the century-old Mann Act, laws originally written in 1910 to combat white slave trafficking, but now rarely applied to consensual adult relationships. His lawyers paint the picture bluntly. Diddy wasn't running a criminal empire, he wasn't trafficking victims, he was living a swinger lifestyle with his partners. Relationships, they say, were entirely voluntary. And yet he's the only person in the US currently serving time for being a John under these circumstances. They also point to the exceptional circumstances clause in federal law, arguing that the court has the power to release him pending sentencing if 2 things are true. He's not a flight risk, and his detention isn't appropriate given unique factors. For them, those factors are clear. He's spent 11 months at MDC Brooklyn, a facility infamous for violence, medical neglect, and relentless lockdowns. This is more than a legal motion, it's a survival plea. The defense wants the judge to see what they see: a man convicted of conduct the DOJ rarely prosecutes, now trapped in a powder keg of danger where every day could be his last. But inside those walls, paperwork can only do so much. The real danger doesn't wait for court dates. It moves in silence until it strikes. Prison is its own universe, one where the rules are unwritten, but break them and you pay in blood. For Diddy, stepping into the Metropolitan Detention Center was like crossing into a parallel world where money, fame, and platinum records are worthless. The second those gates slammed shut, he was no longer the mogul. He was inmate number, just another man trying to survive. At first, he played it safe. No grandstanding, no unnecessary eye contact. He kept his head down, learned the rhythms of the cell block, the timing of meals, the tone of the guards, the unspoken signals passed between inmates. But his name couldn't be hidden. Whispers followed him everywhere. Some prisoners respected his outside success, others saw it as bait. Fame here wasn't a shield, it was a neon sign that said, "Test me." The MDC was a pressure cooker. Tempers simmered beneath the surface. Power was constantly challenged in subtle ways. Control over a table in the cafeteria, the pecking order in the rec yard, the unspoken alliances that could shift overnight. And then there were the dangers that came with simply being Diddy. Every handshake could be a setup, every glance a silent threat. He knew the risks, but you can't live in constant retreat without making yourself look weak. So he navigated carefully, trying to appear neither predator nor prey. Yet in a place like this, the balance is fragile. One misunderstanding, one perceived slight, one grudge from someone you've never even met, and the peace you've built can shatter in seconds. That's exactly what happened next. It started like any other day in the unit, the metallic slam of cell doors, the shuffle of feet down the hallway, the low hum of voices that never quite disappears. Diddy was in one of the common areas, away from his usual circle, when a subtle shift in the atmosphere caught his attention. A glance exchanged, a few words murmured low enough to be missed by most ears. Then the first blow came, fast, sharp, and deliberate. Instinct told him to defend himself, but prison fights aren't like street brawls. Every swing has consequences. You have to know who's watching, who's backing your opponent, and whether retaliation will draw more enemies. This wasn't a scuffle, it was a barrage. Fists rained down, each hit measured to send a message. Around them, inmates watched from the edges, some with curiosity, others with cold calculation. By the time correctional officers rushed in, the damage was done. His body ached, his breathing ragged, but the deeper wound was psychological. The realization hit him like a second punch. His fame, his money, his connections meant nothing here. In this world, survival was earned day by day. And today, he had been marked. Minutes later, surrounded by officers, Diddy did something few high-profile inmates are willing to do. He asked, directly, urgently, for protection. In prison, that request can save your life. But it also brands you. Some will see it as weakness, others as opportunity. Still, in that moment, pride was worth less than another day like the one he had just endured. The move would shift how others saw him, and in the brutal ecosystem of prison politics, perception could be the difference between living to see October or not. The days after the attack were different, quieter, tighter. Every movement Diddy made was calculated. He kept his walking routes short, his conversations brief, his meals taken with his back against the wall. Even in the so-called safer unit, the air felt charged, like a storm waiting to break. In prison, word travels faster than the guards can move. Everyone knew what had happened. They knew he'd asked for protection. Some saw it as smart, a survival move. Others smelled blood in the water. Because in here, once you've been marked, you're never truly safe again. Someone had crossed the line once, and that meant someone else might try. Sleep became a fragile luxury. The smallest noise in the night snapped him awake. Every unfamiliar face in the hallway was a potential threat. The bravado that had defined his public persona was gone, replaced by a hyper-awareness that bordered on paranoia. Outside, the headlines framed him as a fallen icon, a man unable to adapt to life behind bars. Social media buzzed with theories, revenge, a power play, random violence. Inside, the questions were more dangerous. Would he retaliate? Would he fold? Would he try to buy his way out? Each answer carried its own risks. He understood now that his real sentence wasn't measured in years or charges. It was the constant, gnawing knowledge that survival here was never guaranteed. Charm and connections could carry you far on the outside, but in this world, invisibility was the only power worth having. And for Sean Diddy Combs, every day until October 3rd would be a test of how long he could stay unseen and alive. What do you think? Is Diddy being unfairly held for a crime the law rarely prosecutes? Or is this simply the reality of a man facing the consequences of a lifetime of choices? If you found this story compelling, don't just scroll away. Like this video so more people can see it. Share it to keep the conversation alive. And subscribe so you don't miss the next update on Diddy's fight to survive, both inside and outside the courtroom. The walls may be closing in, but the story is far from over.